Does SEO work on TikTok? And if so, how does it work? Hello and welcome to the September 2024 edition of the Majestic SEO panel, where we'll be discussing how TikTok works for SEO. I'm your host, David Bain. Joining me today are three great guests, starting off with Mathilde.
Hello, my name is Mathilde Høj, and I work as an SEO manager at Transact Denmark. I've been working within SEO for the past 3 years, and I'm specialized within TikTok SEO.
Well, Mathilde, thanks so much for joining us. And also with us today is Alice.
Hello, I'm Alice and I run a TikTok strategy and influence marketing agency called Gratified. I've been working in social media for about 18 years, so it's been really interesting to see how SEO is becoming more of a priority in social. So really excited to talk about it today.
Really excited to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on, Alice. And also with us is Isa.
Hello, I'm Isa. I'm a freelance search strategist. I've been working in SEO for about 15 years. I'm super passionate about merging social and search because essentially it's all part of the same customer journey. So really excited to talk about it here today.
Really excited to have that as part of the conversation as well. Let's go to Mathilde for the first question. So Mathilde, how does TikTok work compared with a traditional search engine?
TikTok is much more tailored to each user and their needs. When users are scrolling on TikTok, going on the For You page and searching on TikTok, it's really tailored to the specific rabbit holes that each user wants to be in. Whereas when you search on Google or Bing or the traditional search engines, you get what all of the other people also see. So it's very specific to each user.
Tailored to the specific rabbit hole. I love that. Alice, is that a definition that you would agree with?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that's one thing that TikTok has become incredibly famous for, isn't it? To have such a tailored For You page experience. And it means that it's almost become a completely different content consuming experience when you spend time on TikTok. No one's For You page is going to be the same as anyone else's. And even the smallest nuance of change to your behavior can change the way that you serve the content on the platform. And I think that's part of the reason why it's become so popularized as a search engine and as a search tool, because it is so bespoke to what you're looking for and what you want out of your content.
What are your thoughts, Isa?
Yeah, I agree with both of what you said. The only thing I'd really like to add to that is that TikTok is kind of like adapting to how behaviors basically. So we're all a bit more lazy now, right? So if you're watching something like a streaming platform like Netflix or anything like that, it's everything is served to you, everything is given to you. Here's what you might like, here's what you might view. If you're on Amazon, it will give you a whole point of the things that you might want to buy based on your history. And TikTok basically does the same. As soon as you start using it, literally then start serving you products that you might be interested in without you even thinking about it. I don't know how many times, I am not the demographic for TikTok, but my TikTok shopping purchase history is now actually growing and growing every day because it's really detailed in terms of the types of products and services that I would be liking and enjoying. So I think that's another way that it's kind of filling the gap in the market, which is why it's popular.
So, Isa, are people actually looking for things on TikTok, or are they just being served things? Is the discovery engine so strong they don't really have to search?
I mean, I think it's both, because obviously because the For You page is so tailored and so bespoke that you do get served things that even that you're not looking for. But I know, like, if anyone is traveling, looking for restaurant recommendations, looking for, things to do, places to see, that's when it becomes a search engine, because you're essentially getting user generated content and you're getting it in terms of like in real time, the most recent. And also it kind of feels a little bit like you're wearing those virtual kind of VI kind of glasses where you literally go and see the difference between searching on Google or search engine is you're more likely to see an article or branded page or something like that that's a bit dated. Whereas actually, if I look at, best restaurants I'm going to Zurich in like a couple of weeks. So I'm like looking at best restaurants in Zurich. It's going to serve me most recent ones that people really like. It's going to show me how to get in, what kind of food they serve. It's going to give me everything that I want in one go. And I think that's why it's giving people much richer content than they would using a search engine.
Okay, great. Alice, what do people tend to search for on TikTok?
Oh gosh, what don't they search for? It's interesting. I think it was towards the end of last year, and Isa, I'd love to know your thoughts on this and your experience, that we really started to see some search terms within some verticals overtake those of Google. I think, as Isa again said, that it has traditionally skewed to a lower age demographic on TikTok. So things like fashion, beauty, travel, I think automotive now has taken over Google. Although saying that, the biggest growth demographic for TikTok is the age 45 plus. So I'm sure that will change as time goes on. But really, I mean, what can't you find? I'm 39, I'm nearly 40. I search for things on TikTok now before I go to Google. And it's just, again, I'm just agreeing with everything Isa said. It's just the immediacy of the results and the user generated quality of the results. So it's almost like they're more trustworthy than the sponsored things that you come across on Google, than the brand pages you come across on Google. You can get real people, real results, real opinions far quicker than you can diving through pages of Google results.
Matilda, how would you compare the search experience on TikTok compared with Google?
It is much more, of course, tailored, as we've all agreed on, but also it's much deeper than what Google offers. We know Google is about to launch, or has launched in some markets, AI overviews, which has some degree of tailoring, but it's not the same, and it's definitely not what TikTok does. TikTok serves what you want to see specifically, but they also do it in different ways. So if you're, for example, looking for a makeup tutorial, you can receive your search in both a video format but also a text format, because TikTok has launched what we will see as featured snippet in Google called search highlights. So you get so much more content with less than you do on Google.
Alice, I mean, do you find that people are becoming intelligent about what to search for on Google and what to search for on TikTok, and are gravitating towards TikTok for certain searches?
Yeah, I mean, I think this has come as well with the digitally native children who are now on TikTok. So users that have grown up with the internet have almost taken over those who haven't, like us oldies. But I think also TikTok search is very smart. I don't know kind of the ins and outs of this, but I, from my experience, would venture to say that TikTok search is smarter than Google. And I guess that comes into, in part, it knowing your behavior on the app as well, knowing the things you like, the things you don't like. But I think there's also an element here of the way that TikTok signals to creators what is being searched for on the app as well. There is a tool called Creator Search Insights, which creators can use to try and understand the things that are being searched for in their area of expertise, in their area of content production. So TikTok are proactively pushing creators to craft the content that fills the gaps that are being searched for with not enough content to deliver that on those searches. So it really is there quite a big ecosystem of trying to fulfill user behavior, trying to predict user behavior, and trying to deliver on exactly the things that people are searching for when they're searching for them.
Isa, from your own experience, what wouldn't you use TikTok for? I mean, what would you just naturally go back to Google for, because you know that that's a better experience?
Well, I don't think it's so much about experience. I think one thing that people don't really think about with TikTok is the misinformation and disinformation. That there is a lot of that at the moment. So, Google's been around for 30 odd years, 25 years. So it does lead in the terms of things like trust and authority and credibility. So Google's never going to sort of rank something high if it doesn't feel like that content is relevant and it's authentic and it's coming from a source that we're likely to trust. Whereas with TikTok, all it takes is for a video to go viral and to get loads of likes and engagements for it to be popular. So I think it's really, so for instance, if I'm looking for a hotel, I will look at, people talking about this is the best hotel to go to, and here's the swimming pool, and here's this, that, and the other, and here's how to get there. But actually, if I'm making the booking, or I'm actually thinking about that transaction, I'm more likely to kind of go to Google and and book from Google, because I'm more likely to trust Google. And I think with things like news and news sources, I think people fact check a little bit more. So if I see something on TikTok, I'm not likely to believe exactly what I see, because a lot of it, what is it they say, something about couch detectives. There's that couch detective kind of thing that goes massively on TikTok when there's like a murder or a mystery or everything, and then everyone puts their take on it, and anything that kind of gets really popular, people kind of go on down a rabbit hole. And I'm actually more likely to go to Google. And back in the day when it was a more credible source, Twitter, aka X, and was more credible in terms of getting that news information. So there is certain things that you wouldn't search on TikTok for, but actually there's more and more stuff that you wouldn't think to search on TikTok. That's like book talk, that's got millions and millions of views. You've got like automated, like what you were saying, like how to fix the back of a car or how to fix an engine. All that kind of stuff is like becoming popular. So essentially it's all about where the audiences go, and if people are creating content in that space, there's going to be some form of credibility there. But TikTok's still got a way to go in terms of cleaning up its data and making sure that the content it's pushing through is actually legitimate and credible. So that's what it's got to do.
Is that because it's a young platform, or is it because it's a platform that delivers a different type of content?
I think it's actually more because it's democratic, right? So if you do content that people are interested in, it's going to go viral and it gets engagement. So there's no one there to kind of question it or kind of filter it or look through anything. It's kind of user generated content that just goes viral essentially. So there's no one there to vet. So because of that, things are more likely to get through in terms of viral and popularity than not. So I think that's mainly sort of the main reason why that is at the moment. So it probably does need to introduce some sort of vetting system into the algorithm.
Matilda, is TikTok the future of search, or is it only the future of a certain type of search?
I think it plays a part in the future of search because users use the platform to cross-check domains on Google and see how they connect with their audience and the users on the platform. So as it says, you can go on Google and do the booking on a website on Google that you found on Google, but you're most likely also going to cross-check the presence that that brand has on TikTok and how they connect with their audience and what they want to showcase on TikTok. I won't say that TikTok will replace Google. I don't think we will ever see anyone replacing Google because they just play such a big part of our collective conscience. But I will definitely say that TikTok plays a huge part in the future of search.
What are your thoughts, Alice?
Oh, it's interesting looking at the behavior of Gen Zs and younger at the moment, because we're seeing now that streaming platforms, YouTube, is overtaking kind of terrestrial TV, and the amount of time spent on digital platforms is far outweighing the amount of time spent on live TV. Who watches live TV anymore? And I do wonder if search will be phased out. I think Matilda is right that it won't completely obliterate it, but I think Google will have to adapt more than they have already adapted, so that they are in line with that user behavior, so they are delivering more instant UGC multimedia results over just text. Although I do love the new AI context that they give in the searches, so I think it will just look different. I think it won't be gone forever, but it will be different.
Shall we talk about how to optimize for TikTok? Maybe specific measures that we can take to try and make it more likely that our content is seen over other content. Matilda, should we go back to you for that one? How would you summarize the key areas to focus on for TikTok SEO?
When optimizing for TikTok, you have to, of course, find the keywords that you want to target. Like in all things SEO, we need to know what our users are searching for and target that specifically. But the magic with the TikTok profile is, and the For You page that the users get served, that you as a sender can have multiple subjects on your profile and still the right user will get that on their For You page. So you can have a video that talks about stress and another that talks about plans, and they won't ever cross each other on in the users For You page. So yeah, finding all of the relevant keywords and tapping into those, and then optimizing your videos for them.
And where do you find the keywords? I mean, do we use regular keyword research tools, or are there specific keywords that are more relevant to TikTok that we can find somewhere else?
There isn't currently any tools that have search volumes for TikTok searches because TikTok doesn't give that information up. So what I would normally do is to perform a regular keyword analysis and then test it in a TikTok environment. So using the keyword insights tool, looking at the trends reports, but also searching in the search bar on TikTok and seeing what is working in other videos and what suggested auto searches is coming up in that search bar.
Generally, do people search with shorter phrases on TikTok compared with Google?
When you do the search bar analysis, it shows long tail searches as well. It really depends on the subject you want to tap into. If you're just looking on an inspirational level, like a very top level search, it will just say hair care or hair talk. But if you are looking for a deeper knowledge and doing a deep learning search, you will most likely do a long tail search and look for something like how do I get longer hair or something like that.
Okay. Isa, what are some additional thoughts about how to optimize for TikTok?
I think it's just thinking about the user journey, really, because what you were saying earlier about the future of TikTok and how is that going to change? I think it's kind of thinking about it threefold. One is the user journey for us is completely changed. We're not all just going on one platform and getting our information from there, making the decision. So it's kind of that loop. You go on Google, then you go on TikTok, then you go on, then you go on YouTube to watch a video, and then you kind of come back and go to the sort of brand website to make your purchase. And I think it's thinking about it in that way in terms of how you optimize. It's really thinking about the user and how the user's thinking and where they are in their buyer journey. So if it's kind of from the discovery phase, then you kind of think about more discovery keywords, best things to do, like advice, like inspiration, all that kind of stuff. And then if you want more transactional stuff, then you probably would be moving more away from TikTok and then really thinking about bringing it back into the sort of search engines, because obviously you're more likely to drive sort of transactions through that, even though I know things like Instagram shop and TikTok shop are growing. Essentially, in terms of that transaction, it's going to be more towards like what it's called consideration and purchase. It's going to be going back into the search engine. So I think in terms of optimizing, it's thinking about the discoverable keywords at that stage for TikTok and really making sure you've captured all the different audiences. I think it's yes, what Mathilde was saying earlier in terms of the way people search on TikTok is slightly different. It is younger. There's probably a little bit more slang. Things are probably not spelt the same way as they would be spelt grammatically. So it's looking into all those things and making sure you tick stuff off the list to make sure you've captured the whole sort of user journey as people go from start to finish.
Sophie Fell's watching live on LinkedIn. Sophie's saying really great tips and insights from every single one of you. Interesting to hear about the future of TikTok search and Gen Z search habits too. Thank you all for sharing with us. Thank you for watching live, Sophie. Alice, do you have any final thoughts on any additional tips regarding how to specifically optimize for TikTok?
Yes. So I think although it can feel quite scary because it's a new platform, it's a slightly different way of searching, the principles are the same as usual SEO. I like to think of it, it's like you're writing a blog post. So your content, the meat of your content is the post. You will have a title, you will have a hook, you will have your keywords, and you will have a caption. And it's just, as everyone else has said, it's just about identifying that keyword and the repetition of it in strategic places throughout your content. It's about not just writing it in your caption and in your hashtags, but putting it in the words that you speak as well, because the subtitles on TikTok all feed through to your the SEO properties of your content. It's also about, and not many people do this, but when you have community engagement, it's about replying to the comments on TikTok with those keywords again. And we've done a few experiments. It's really interesting to see with this how quick TikTok will pick up on the subject of your video and suggest the search terms at the top, depending on how many comments are there and how often your keyword is repeated in that comment section. So it's just, I think, about keeping up with anything that's changing with the algorithm, with listening to people who are understanding how search is changing on TikTok, and just not getting too tied up over it, because it is the principles of it are exactly the same as if you're writing a blog post. It hasn't changed.
Great specific tips there. Shall we move on to content? Because obviously it's not just about optimization tweaks. It's about delivering the right piece of content in the right manner for the right person and getting engagement on that piece of content for it to be resurfaced in the future. So Mathilde, what are a few content tips that you would offer regarding TikTok?
I think the most important one is having the hook within the first 2 seconds, because if the users don't like your content, they will scroll past it, and then the video won't be shown again. And
What's an
won't be
example of a hook?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that depends on the video and what type of content you are putting out there. For some, it might be an open question or just something wild happening in a video. So that really depends on the case that you're using.
So maybe even, I mean, at the start of YouTube videos, you often see a very quick snapshot of what you can expect by watching the whole video. I mean, TikTok videos are quite short. Would that principle still work on TikTok, where you're just in the first 2 seconds giving a summary of what people can expect by watching the whole video?
Maybe not a summary, but just like starting in the middle of the video. So no introduction, but just starting it out and doing it, what the video is supposed to be about. That will be the main thing, I would say.
SEO lady Nina Payne saying, good to know that traditional SEO on-page practices apply to the visibility of a TikTok post. Thanks for commenting there as well. And Isa, what are your thoughts on the type of content that works best on TikTok?
So yeah, I think it's got to be very authentic. It's all going to be, it's literally, I mean, it's getting to the point now where there's loads of ads. One thing I will say that is happening with TikTok, as most platforms, as they start to kind of try and drive revenue and try and make it profitable, is obviously more ads start coming in. But what the difference is, when an ad comes in, it's still going to be like For You page in terms of going to be relatable to you and the kind of content that you see. And a lot of the time you actually have to see that it's an ad because it comes across as so organic. So I would say this is where influencer, content creator, working with them and collaborating with them is like a really big one. It's making sure that it's really got to kind of come through to be authentic. People don't like the sort of false salesy type stuff that comes through. Like that stuff does not work on TikTok at all. It's got to be relatable, user generated content. So it literally just getting people to go out and create the content for your brand, for your company, and kind of putting it out on TikTok, I would say. What you were saying earlier, Mathilde, in terms of, the first 2 seconds, absolutely. And this is why I would say TikTok also kind of fits really well in our now, dare I say, polarized kind of environment. So people really like disruptive content that's actually either going to make people smile, or going to make people angry, or going to make people upset, or going to make people emotional. It's that kind of instant emotive kind of reaction you want from someone in the first sort of 2 to 3 seconds. So whether it's comedy, whether it's like, making someone happy or sad, or coming up with I don't know, let's say if you said something like diets don't work, that's going to get a reaction from someone, because you're going to have a whole bunch of people who go, what the hell are they talking about? And then that reels people in to kind of really then start to listen to what you're saying. So it's really thinking about the type of things, if you're thinking about an email, or like what you were saying, Alice, like the title of a blog post, anything that's going to really attract attention and cut through, you've got to go even harder with TikTok, because our attention span, especially with the younger generation, is so like, you really need to get people with like cut through content, I would say.
As you talked about maybe working with influencers, if a brand's listening to this and thinking actually that we could actually dip our toes in the water in terms of TikTok by doing that, we haven't really used it before, perhaps the best way of doing it is to reach out to an influencer or influencers on TikTok. If they did that, should they have a set of guidelines for the influencer, or would influencers generally know best in terms of the type of content, the style of content that works?
Well, I think with user generated content, especially the type of content for TikTok, it's really collaborative. So you have to, obviously if you're a brand, you need to be on brand, and you need to make sure that, whatever messaging you want to come cuts through, that you're not working with someone that's not gonna be a good fit, that the audience you're trying to reach out to is aligned to your target audience. All those things need to kind of make sense, but essentially you then need to let the creator do their own thing and kind of make it their own. So yes, there should be some sort of guidelines just to make sure that what's on brand, but essentially you're choosing the influencer because they're a right fit for your brand. So there should be some sort of autonomy for you to kind of go, okay, here's kind of what we would like you to do, here's the call to action, here's kind of here's the objective of this kind of post. Go with it, like run with it, do what you need to do. And I think that's why sort of the selection process and making sure you get people that's the right fit. And the thing is with TikTok, it is less and less and less about having 1 million followers and 1 million, it's more about having an influencer that's really targeted to your target audience, because it's more likely that when you work with them, their content is going to be shown to your target audience. So it's less about, I want to work with this TikToker who's got 7 million followers, and more about, I want to work with this TikToker who's got 8,000 or 10,000 followers. But actually the type of content they're creating is really aligned with us and what we're trying to say, and actually it's a really good fit. So I'd say influencer marketing in TikTok space is even more collaborative than it ever has been before. So if everyone's thinking about that, those are the things that you should really be kind of keeping in mind, rather than here's your brief, put this post, say this, do that. It's less likely to work in that kind of format.
Alice, is there a type of content you've seen work best on TikTok?
We normally split solid TikTok content into 3 buckets. It's either educational, entertaining, or kind of 4 controversial or emotional. So you have to spark something strong in a person, whether that's an eagerness to learn or an interest in what you're saying, and a very strong emotion. And positive emotions work better than negative on TikTok. Something entertaining, although that's phased out a lot over the last year as the algorithm has changed. Or controversial, so something that's slightly shocking or makes you want to hear more. It's a real value exchange of a platform, so people tend to check their brain when they arrive on TikTok. They just want easy information, and they want for their time they spend on the platform to be exchanged for some kind of entertainment. So that's why the hook is so important. We used to call it the 3-second hook, but it's actually 1.6 seconds is that time that you have to make that value of the content very clear. So you have to be very, very upfront with what you are giving up in exchange for that person's time to consume the content you're giving to them. So there's lots and lots of different types of content that work, but it's just about really giving away that value, really making it as well. We're seeing much more visually engaging. It used to be more about what you were saying, but up to kind of 70% of people now don't have the sound on when they watch TikTok. So it's a fine line between what you're doing audibly versus what you're doing visually. But you can make any kind of content work on TikTok. It's just about packaging it in the right way and selling that value super upfront. And then, of course, having the SEO operating for you.
That's quite incredible. 70% of people don't have the sound on. So I would imagine that big captions center of the video is standard practice and best practice.
No, see, you'd think, wouldn't you? But no, YouTube style, those big subtitles, that doesn't really work that well, apart from in a few niches like football and the kind of finance, the more male skewed area of finance. Users really on TikTok, it's a very rough and ready, very low-fi platform. So you don't want the lovely Instagram captions. You don't want beautiful fonts. You want the subtitles that are native to the platform, that are out the way, but are very readable. Yeah, you don't want lots of flashy stuff on TikTok. It doesn't work.
Brilliant. Okay. Richie's asking on YouTube, are follower counts as influential within TikTok, considering the power of the algorithm and For You page? Mathilde, would you fancy taking that one?
In my opinion, no, followers is not that important. Of course, if you have 100,000 followers, it is 100,000 people that might get to see your video, but it's not necessarily what's going to happen, because we have 2 tabs on TikTok. We have the For You page and we have the following tab. And most people are scrolling on the For You page, not the following tab. So they are only going to see your video in most cases if they go to the following tab. But in most cases, people are scrolling the For You page and they might see your video, but not necessarily. So no, followers don't have that much of an impact.
Shall we talk a little bit about how TikTok relates to other parts of the user journey? Because I would imagine most brands are using TikTok or viewing TikTok as being a part of the user journey, but not the whole experience when it comes to making that purchase decision. So what's everyone's thoughts on maybe how TikTok relates to other marketing channels and where it tends to fit in the user journey? Alice, do you fancy kicking that one off?
Yes, so we actually, as an agency, we view TikTok as a full funnel platform, and we structure the strategies that we work on around that, knowing the different types of content that we know work at different levels of the funnel. Obviously, whatever objectives you have are very dependent on how you work that funnel, and larger purchases will obviously have to go out of the funnel and somewhere else. But we think it is entirely possible, especially for purchases under £100, or when your conversion is not to have a purchase, but is to have information for a mailing list or to have some other kind of action taken. We believe it's possible for TikTok to completely look after that user journey for you. And this is also why we, and go back to what Mathilda just said about their follower numbers, which completely agree with everything she said. It's so much more important now to build a community around your TikTok content and to really build a strength for yourself, a niche, a content type, I guess vibe, as the kids would say, because you can get followers, but you will see people who've got 1 million followers but are only getting 500 views per video. It is not, there is not a direct correlation all the time with follower numbers versus those who are viewing your videos. You have to be strong in your content production. You have to adapt to consumer behavior, and you have to adapt to the algorithm, and you have to create that community. Otherwise, people will get bored and go elsewhere, and they won't even do it kind of with their own knowledge. They will just do it in the behavior on the For You page because they will stop watching you.
Isaiah, what are your thoughts on the role that TikTok plays in the user journey?
I mean, I'd agree with everything that Alice has said, but I actually work really closely with creative and sort of traditional PR comms agencies into kind of really making search as a whole and social as part of their insight. So, you know, it's great when you have a creative team who come up, oh, let's do this idea, let's do a flash mob, or let's, come up with this kind of concept. But actually, it's even better when you kind of go to find out what the demand is. What are people talking about? What are the trends? What's getting the most traction on that platform? How are people engaging with it? What are people commenting on those kind of types of content? And actually that gives you the insight of what sort of ideas you should be coming up with that aligns with demand and aligns with what people are looking for. So I think in terms of sort of that customer journey, I actually think you should really be thinking about TikTok and search engines together at the start of that user journey, because actually, it's never been a time in our life where we as marketers actually can get a real clear data-led idea of what customers want, or what potential customers want, what they want to see, what they're engaging in, what they're searching for, what answers they want, what questions they want answered. You get all this insight from platforms like TikTok. So I think using TikTok in that sense then starts to feed into that customer journey, and then it dripples down, it really aligns and it makes sense. So if you're a creative PR comms agency and you're coming up with great ideas, sometimes with massive big budgets, you're always trying to get buy-in from clients or stakeholders. You can be like, it's in the pudding. This is what actually people want. This is what people are searching for. This is what people are looking for. This is the kind of stuff people are really engaged in. And especially, I would say, if you're doing quick kind of stuff, where quick turnarounds, really jumping on what trends are. So this with sounds and with I'm sure everyone's heard of Very Demure, Very Delightful, and how many brands have taken on that line and made it their own and all that kind of stuff. So it's really jumping on trends, jumping on what is actually reactively working at that time, and making sure that sort of TikTok and social platforms like TikTok are at the start of your user journey when you're kind of creating content for potential customers.
Matilda, can any brand utilize TikTok, or is TikTok better for a certain type of business vertical?
I would say any brand can use TikTok. It just depends on what type of content format you put out and what you want out of the platform. For most verticals, it will make sense to broadcast your products or your services. But you can also use it as an employer branding platform and showcase how it is to work at your company, especially if you're a B2B company. I know a great example of this is Maersk, the big freight company. They use it for employer branding only, where they showcase their vessels and how they do everyday life at Maersk in different parts of the world. But then we also have Ryanair, for example, who just really roast themselves and their services and to get people to buy more Ryanair tickets. So every vertical can be on TikTok.
Okay, but it sounds like brands are picking something very specific as being just a way to show a little bit more about their personality, and let people subscribe to that. But I mean, Alice, it doesn't sound like a full user journey. Is different types of content necessary to serve that full user journey?
Yes. So for awareness content, you might look at things that are slightly controversial or things that are kind of bang on trends. We saw Reese, you mentioned flash mobs, Isa. Reese did a flash mob a couple of months ago, and it was, it's just delightful. That you think that flash mobs have gone out of fashion, but they just jumped on this man in finance trend and executed it perfectly. And then we've seen Currys in the last week do a vocabulary of Gen Z speak, which was hilarious. So that both hit the trends thing. Well, you've got controversy where you can speak about, myth busting in your industry or breaking a commonly held belief. That works really well and tends to do really good numbers. And then you go through to the nurture, where you start telling more of a story about your brand, who you are, how you operate. You might bring in your employees at that point. And then towards the bottom of the funnel, you might talk about your product and service and its benefits. And that's where you start moving people through to action or purchase. But yeah, it's definitely an art to kind of look at your content within those different consideration brackets, but it can be done really, really well.
Alice, you had the last captions question, so I'll ask this one to you as well. Lottie Griffiths is saying, how much context and content needs to be in your TikTok captions?
That's a good question. It can be a lot. And in fact, if it is a lot, there are benefits. Where captions work really well on TikTok is if it's a recipe or a step-by-step or bullet points or an instructional educational video. And in fact, we've seen that if you voice over to your audience, the instructions are in the caption. So save this to come back to later. So those are two of the most important metrics, are saves and shares on TikTok. So they show a much deeper intent than a like or even a comment at this point. So we always want to make sure that our content is as valuable and as shareable as possible. So by bringing more value into that caption as well as in the video itself, you will encourage the users to save the content or to share it, to come back to it later, to watch it again, more views, more pushing it out with the algorithm. So as much context and content as you can bring into that caption, the better.
Isa, talking about content, can you repurpose content that you've published elsewhere in the past, maybe on YouTube, for TikTok, or should it really be unique content that you're producing for TikTok?
I mean, I think one of the key things about TikTok, that it is kind of one of the biggest platforms for nostalgia. I mean, there's, my money just jiggle. It's true. That was something from 10 years ago, and it comes back in and it's repurposed and it becomes a massive big viral trend. I think that's one of the key things about TikTok. So repurposing is fine. It's got to be done in a way that's clever. It's got to be done in a way that taps into something that people are kind of talking about. It taps into a trend. It taps into an emotion. It taps into what's currently going on in the world. Do you know what I mean? And then it kind of fits in. It's not just about, let's just rehash this because it makes sense. It really needs to be strategic. And then also, I think in terms of the format, it's very short, snappy, like everyone's saying, within 1.5 seconds, you've got to get the attention. It's visual, but in a kind of rough and ready way. It's relatable. I also think one of the biggest things about TikTok is it humanizes people. So with a lot of I'm big beauty fan. I work in beauty a lot. One of the things that I notice about the content creators that I follow on on TikTok is they're kind of comedians, or they're just kind of a day in a life, or they're story time type content creators. And most of their content is kind of filmed in their beds wearing a bonnet or kind of with a face mask on. And actually then when I go on their Instagram platform, I can't recognize them. I don't recognize who they are, because Instagram is so much, you know, in a kind of show me the best of the best and show you the best vision and like the edited version of myself, whereas TikTok is real. It's kind of, and that's what it's about. That's why people love it. That's why people gravitate towards it, because it's us showing all our sort of warts and all, and our us in our worst case scenario, just telling a story that people are going to be interested in. And I think that's how, when you're thinking about how you repurpose content, it's like what Alice was saying earlier, making anything flashy or making it kind of look great or be wonderful. Like, no one cares about stuff like that. They want to get to know you as a person and know what your point of view is. And that's why you would see things like politicians joining TikTok and, you know, brands joining TikTok, because we want to see sort of the real side of who people are. And I think that's the one thing you need to be thinking about if you're repurposing. Just think about what the strategy behind the repurpose is, essentially.
If I can add to that as well, because you can actually repurpose your old TikTok content. And lots of people do this very successfully on kind of a rolling quarterly basis. So if something does very well for you on TikTok, if you save the clean version of it, then re-upload it, perhaps switch around the subtitles slightly. You can maybe do some A/B testing. Lots of people see success with just rolling their big hitters until people stop engaging with them and they stop becoming relevant. But that is something that I don't see a lot of people doing, but it is so effective because it's a big undertaking to create new content for TikTok all the time. So just we call it a banger bank of content ready to go.
So TikTok may or may not be the future of search in itself, but it's certainly part of the future of search, and businesses need to be thinking about that a little bit more. Certainly if their offering, I guess, is skewed more towards Generation Z or people that are more likely to be using TikTok. So shall we finish off by getting each of you to share one thing that businesses can do to better prepare themselves for the future of success, of future of search using TikTok? And then I'll get you to share your contact details just to remind the listener where to find you. So Matilda, shall we start off with you? What's one thing that businesses need to be doing now to prepare themselves for the future of search?
First of all, if they aren't on the platform, they need to join the platform and see what it's all about. They need to look into the trends that's going on and really just keeping the nativity in mind. Like both Alice and Isa has said, it's really about keeping it authentic and user generated and make the content feel like that. So it's not an ad that the users will meet when they scroll through your content.
And where can people find you, Matilda?
I am over at omctransact.dk or on my LinkedIn profile.
Thank you so much for joining us. Also with us today was Isa. Isa, what would you say is that one thing that brands can do to prepare for the future of search using TikTok?
Well, yes, obviously join, as what Matilda was saying. But I think if you're really overwhelmed and think, oh my God, I don't even know where to start, I don't even know what content to create, use it as a listening tool. I think that's like a really good start. Just listen, see what people are talking about, see what algorithm comes up for you, see, what trends are kind of coming back over and over again, what kind of verticals are working better on TikTok than others, and just like listen in, lean in, and kind of find out where you could kind of fit in terms of what you want to say. And then I would also say with TikTok, it is kind of stripping things bare. If you're going to think about any kind of TikTok strategy, again, if you haven't started thinking about TikTok strategy, it's thinking about everything that you would put on a glossy magazine or, an Instagram post. Actually think about how you would do that in an opposite way. No one really cares about that on TikTok. How are you going to show the raw version of you that's going to be like a unique, that's going to cut through, that's going to kind of really relate to your audience or your target audience, and is actually going to be able to kind of move the needle in terms of the perception of who you are as a brand. And that's the thing, before you even start creating the content, think about that concept as well. For me, I'm a freelancer. You can find me on digiprcoms.com or on my LinkedIn, and I'm also on X for anyone who still uses it.
Isa, thank you so much for joining us. Alice, what are your thoughts on that last one step that a brand can do to get more aware of the future of search using TikTok?
I think just have fun with it. We see so many brands join TikTok and treat it like a brand platform. And obviously it is a brand platform, it is a marketing platform, but it's very different to even Instagram. It's completely possible to see massive success on TikTok without putting paid media behind it, but you have to have fun with it. You have to understand that it is a quickly changing, it's an For You page, algorithmic platform that will respond really quickly to the content you're producing. But that is a positive thing because it means you can change your behavior as quickly as it responds to it. So just consume content as much as you can. Consume it critically. So watch content and understand what you like about it and what you don't like about it. Talk to your work colleagues. What do they consume on TikTok? What do they enjoy? And just try not to be scared of it, because I feel like lots of people are scared of going out on TikTok. It's like this big, scary foreign platform and, you know, no one knows how it works. But it is, I believe it to be one of the most interesting formulaic places, because once you work out a content formula, once you work out your SEO strategy, you know that if you piece together a piece of content using X, Y, and Z, it will do a certain amount of numbers, because that is just the way the algorithm works. So just don't be scared of it. And you can find me, my agency is called Gratified. You can find us at getgratified.com. And we do a free newsletter actually once a week where we do trends and insights to the algorithmic behavior. And so I think that's a good follow as well.
And people can just get that from your website, can they, Alice?
Yeah.
Superb. I've been your host, David Bain. You've been listening to the Majestic SEO panel. If you want to join us live next time, sign up at majestic.com/webinars. And of course, check out our other series at SEOin2024.com. That domain name might be changing soon as well. Bye-bye for now.